Hey there. Before we get started, I just wanted to come on and ask you all a favor. In our research, we've discovered that the vast majority of you do not actually like and subscribe to our podcast. And so, if I could ask you to do so, I won't ask you for anything else. And I promise to make this podcast the best I can every day. Me and the team really strive to do that for you. And so, if you could do this for us, we would be eternally grateful. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Mickelle Weber, founder and auteur of House of Peregrine. Expat, immigrant, pioneer, none of these were a fit, but Peregrine describes what we are all about perfectly. Those that craft their life story with intention. I've spent the last 6 years in awe of the life-changing connections and stories I have experienced while living abroad, and believe it is time for this adventure to be recognized, celebrated, and elevated to the life stage that it is. Through these interviews, I hope to connect those living internationally more deeply to both the place they are living and with themselves and those around them. We cover everything from international finances and meaning-making to global parenting and relationships to make your time abroad more intentional, edifying, and full of beauty. Find us at houseofperegrine.com, where you can find more ways to connect with the ethos of Peregrine. I hope you enjoy today's guest. Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the House of Peregrine podcast. Today, I'm excited to bring you Jen Barnett from Expatsi. Expatsi creates ways for Americans to move abroad, and they provide excursions and scouting trips, a conference, and a network of professionals to help you do just that. Jen, thank you so much for coming on today. I am very excited to talk to you about this. It's very relevant at the moment. People are really considering a move. The world is changing quite a bit, and so it's nice that we can have this conversation today. I want to start, though, by introducing yourself to us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. My name is Jen Barnett, and I am the co-founder of Expatsi, along with my husband, Brett Andrews.
Nice. And tell me a little bit about before Expatsi. So just tell us where you grew up, a little bit about yourself and Brett, and then we can move right in. I'm excited to get started with all the things you guys have going on.
So Brett and I are both from Alabama. We lived in Birmingham, Alabama before we made the move. And I had really always wanted to live abroad from the time I was a little girl. I went to a little religious elementary school, and I remember in first grade, we had France Week, and we set up little outdoor cafes in the hall. And I could not have been more transported to a world that I could see that was so far beyond, Center Point, Birmingham, Alabama, in my little church basement. And I always dreamt of moving abroad. As a matter of fact, when I was in my early 20s, I dropped out of grad school and bought a one-way ticket to Paris and tried to move there. And that's when I learned that it's not as easy as you might think. So I came back home, of course, had my career and my life. And then I met my husband about 10 years ago. We always talked about living somewhere else. We are what they call evangelical, which is to say that we were raised in pretty strict church upbringing that we had found was not right for us at a young age. And when politics started changing in 2016, we found it to be really frightening for us personally. So we started getting serious about the idea of moving abroad. We originally visited Vancouver because, everyone says, if I don't like what happens in politics, I'll go to Canada. But the truth is, it's really, we went for a vacation almost, but it's really hard to move to Canada, when you are older and you don't have the right job skills. It's not as easy as you might think. You can't just cross the border and say, I'm here. So.
And by older, you mean?
Do you mean my age?
No,
I was 45.
You said when you're older, like when you're not in your 20s or a student or something.
Oh, right. So exactly. If you've ever done the express entry form on Canada's immigration website, you can go in and enter, these are my skills, these are the languages I speak, this is my age, and it will spit out a little score that says how likely you are to be able to move there. And I will tell you, we did not score highly on the express entry form between age and our personal skills. So we sort of put it on a back burner then. And then in 2020, we're working remote at that point. The pandemic is happening. All the political stress is coming back with the election. And we decided to get really serious about it. And we sat, Brett and I like to do these retreats where we go to a cabin and plan out our next year. The cabin that we would go to had no cell service, no internet, nothing. And we would sit and make plans of things we want to accomplish. And this year, we sat down and made a list of everything that was important to us for our place that we wanted to move abroad. What we
this
wanted
is like 2021. I don't want to interrupt you, but this is like 2021.
No, you're fine. Exactly. It's New Year's Eve 2020 leading into New Year's Day 2021. We went over New Year's because that's the best time, right, to make these plans.
Yep. So you have a conspiracy session. No, that's
exactly.
what I like to think of it. Listen, what are we conspiring to do this year?
Absolutely. And like together. And sometimes it's Brett needs a little boost. Sometimes I need a little boost. But on this time, we both needed it. And so we said, this is what we want for weather. I will tell you it wasn't tropics, but here's what we want for weather, safety, healthcare, infrastructure, human rights, all these different things. And then after we came home, we started matching up countries to those criteria and made a top 10 list. We were going to visit Costa Rica first on our list and visit countries over 10 years and then potentially retire. But we ended up visiting Mérida first because of some TikToks I saw. And we moved it from Mexico was in 10th place. We moved it to number 1 and we came here and we just loved it. And I said, why wait? Why wait 10 years? Let's move there now. And it doesn't mean we can't still explore Spain and Portugal and all these other places on our list, but we could do it at a lower cost of living and in a better mindset because we were so incredibly stressed living in the United States. The pandemic was really ugly, and especially in places like Alabama where people would just lash out at you if you were not perceiving the pandemic exactly the way they perceived the pandemic, or you didn't adapt to their personal risk tolerance, whatever. It was just constant pressure. And so we decided to make the move. It took us a couple of years. We also decided to take all that data that we put together, and we thought, there have got to be other people who are in the same spot as us, who are feeling this way and who want to move abroad, but don't know where to start. When you say you're in the Netherlands, when people say, I want to move to the Netherlands, well, there's a path for that, right? You can find people who can help you and you can find what the visa types are and you can start the process. But most people just know they want something else and they have no idea where to start. They're like me running off to France or to Canada. They don't know where they can go. They don't know where we'll accept them. They don't know what they have to offer. So we decided
sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
Guilty.
No, go ahead.
I bought 5 one-way tickets to Amsterdam for a year.
Exactly. I mean, I'm glad it worked out.
But I was running towards something. I always like to tell people, go towards something instead of away from something.
Right.
But right now, the world is changing so dramatically that I think there's maybe a new or a different kind of person who is now looking to live somewhere that matches their values a bit better.
Yes,
would you say that's
completely.
True? Like, I think
absolutely.
Even here in Europe, I think there's that sentiment that maybe the stories we grew up with or where we thought we lived, or maybe we've changed so much that where we live is actually kind of working against our well-being.
Yes.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
You were kind of an early, I moved in 2015. Well,
early 2016. You moved in 2022.
2024.
2024. Oh yeah. And so that's like the world has changed quite a bit for me since I moved. It feels like the entire world has shifted and there's a different paradigm. And so what you're doing is helping people who maybe, like for me, I think I was an early digital nomad. Like we were traveling, living in places for months at a time in the early 2000s. And so that it wasn't new for us to just like buy a plane ticket and try something for a year. But that is not something that maybe is as commonplace for people, especially when they find themselves in the position of feeling really uncomfortable or maybe wanting to try something new, or they've always had a life goal of living like you did out of abroad.
Right.
And so you are providing a path for people to start that journey. Did you know that House of Peregrine has an app? It is full of resources, information, and products to make life as an international more connected and more intentional. As a member of House of Peregrine, you also now have access to exclusive discounts, products, guides, and events to make life more fun and connected. Simply download the app at houseofperegrine.com and save it to your home screen. Okay, back to the show.
That's right. And to shorten this time, it took us 8 years. We would have happily moved in 2016, but we just didn't have the tools at that point in time. So my goal for everyone else is it took me 8 years, but I can help you do it in 6 months or 2 years because you can leapfrog all these mistakes that I made and go faster.
And so when you guys moved, so you did a travel. So your strategy, which is a really good one, by the way, please do it this way instead of the way I did it. It ended up well. We ended up in the perfect spot, and we did, like you, a bunch of research for maybe 10 years, just like traveling around before we had kids and all this stuff. And we kind of had an unofficial deal that we would move before our kids went to school, to elementary school. And so we moved here on my son's fifth birthday, basically. So we had a deal, we made our deal, and he started school somewhere else where he could learn another language was our requirement. And so we really had that goal for our family that they would be bilingual. And so this was the perfect place for that. So we had our metrics of direct flight back to family. My husband, who is still my husband, but his company at the time was there and he needed to fly back frequently. And our family is in Salt Lake City. So we had those requirements, Viking City. So Copenhagen and Amsterdam were our two finalists. And we really wanted somewhere where we could be really comfortable as a family with 3 toddlers. That's what we had at the time. And so Amsterdam kind of hit all the lists. And within 2 months, we were here and trying it for a year. But I think, like you said, you had an 8-year process. So it wasn't like we woke up one day and said, let's go to Amsterdam. It was a process. But maybe the end of it was really, really fast. And so,
right. If you had ended up in Copenhagen, how would you have lived there? I mean, what visa type would you have used? Is he working locally?
No, yeah. But at the time we came on the 30% ruling, the highly skilled visa, migrant visa. And he was opening the European headquarters of his company. So he
wonderful. Yeah. Wonderful.
But that's not normal. You're right.
We feel
very lucky. And the Dutch government was really wanting tech startups here.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was another reason, right? Like tech friendly. Like we really had a big list of it had to fit us so well that worked. But I would also love people to be able to, because it is an emotional journey. It's a really important journey to go through, but not everyone has the skills to do it or the time to do it, to take 8 years to make a choice. So I love what you're doing with Expatsi. So how did that evolve? So I love this notion that you're in the cabin and you're figuring out what both of you need. And so you make the list, you travel to the first place and you're like, this is the place.
Yes. It's so crazy. Honestly, like I said, there was a couple from LA who were making TikToks in Mérida. And that's how we decided to come here. And I thought, oh, it must be, I'd never heard of it. It's in Yucatan State. And I thought it's probably over by LA because the couple was from LA. And then I looked and it was just due south of Alabama. And it was on the Gulf of Mexico. And that's something that's very comforting to us because You grow up going to the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
And so the idea that I would just be on the other side of a little gulf was very comforting. It felt like home.
Yeah.
But we arrived and we just loved it immediately. It felt like home. And the reason why we do our tours is, yeah, I want you to see what life is like. I want you to explore. I want you to see real estate. I want you to go to the pharmacy. I want you to go to the market, all these things. But at the end of the day, it's vibes. It feels like home or it doesn't. A place can look absolutely perfect on paper or certainly on Instagram, and it just has no comparison to what it is like to put your feet in this place. A big thing for us, like I said, it was pandemic. And we came here and there was 100% mask compliance. And that meant a lot to us. And it wasn't, if there had been 100% non-mask compliance, it wouldn't have been right for us necessarily, but it would have had the same impression, which was that everyone agreed. Everyone was in it together. We went out on an ecological flamingo preserve. It couldn't be more remote. I mean, it could not be more remote. And we're in the middle of a lake, in the middle of nowhere, and there was a man on a fishing boat by himself, and he had his mask on. And I thought, everyone here really wants to be in this together. And the messaging on signs, sometimes they were printed and sometimes they were hand painted, but the message said, I'll take care of you, you'll take care of me, and we'll take care of each other. And you could just feel that. There was one point when we were in the mall and I was wearing ridiculous platform shoes and I just fell right on my face. And I was with Brett, he was able to help me up and things. I was mostly just embarrassed, but 10 people ran over to make sure I didn't need anything. Did they need to call a doctor? Did we need to sue them all? All these things. And that sense of like people helping people was something that I really was needing in my soul that I didn't realize was lacking until I had it. At one point, our tire was low and everyone is pointing to the tire to let us know the tire is low. We pull into a gas station. One of the people follows us and fills up the tire for us to make sure that we're okay and wouldn't accept any money. Like being human, the humanity of it was something that I was really missing.
Yeah. And that makes total sense. And so in this place, you felt that and it's something you needed. And
Yes.
that's a really valid way to experience the place. I felt similar with the Netherlands. Like I had 3 kids. I needed a family-friendly city. And I found
Yes.
myself suddenly wandering through the Rijksmuseum with 3 kids and guards telling us to come closer to the paintings. And that's what I needed in my life, was to have a really
Yes.
family-friendly, family-aware city that didn't take itself so seriously. Yeah. And so it is that, it's a story as old as time, right? People move to different places for different reasons, but as Americans, especially white Americans, we are told the story over and over again, right? Like the place didn't suit us, so we left and went to another place. Like it's a very,
Right.
and even before that, I mean, migration is a story as old as human history. And so, but I think we've forgotten sometimes that is true. And so
Impossible.
Yeah. And there are more places than the ones you see on TV. The world is big.
Yes. Yes.
Cool. So you had this resonance, and was that on your trip there, your scouting trip, or your vacation to the Yucatan, or did you experience that after?
So that was on our scouting trip, our first scouting trip. We came in January 2 years ago. We decided to come again in August because we knew, we'd read online, it gets so hot, it's so humid, it's this, it's that. Whereas in January, it's just flawless weather. And so we knew that the hottest months were April, May, June, but we couldn't come then. So we came in August to experience a hotter time and to see if we could handle it, honestly, because people online just made it sound like a nightmare. And we came and it was like, oh, yeah, it's hot. I mean, it's not the end of the world. It's hot. We survived.
Yeah, but you guys are from Alabama, right?
That's right. It's not like it's that
you have
foreign.
Strategies.
Exactly. And I think the humidity is good for your skin. So you just get used to sweating a little bit all the time. And
the weather's
and we just still loved
super valid way to judge a place. You have to really like the weather.
and
It
accept
is.
it.
And for sure. And then people have, sometimes they have health conditions where they can't handle heat or humidity. This is not the place for you for sure. But I did find that our tolerance changed after we moved here. For example, I don't have the air conditioner on right now. It's probably in the 80s. I wouldn't even think to have it on.
In the States, it'd be
because
cold.
I have a fan on.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So you just get used to a different thing. In the hottest part of the year, we get in the pool after lunch and we kind of relax and
For
then go
those of
back
you
to
who are
work when it
watching,
cools off.
sorry to interrupt you. For those of
Go
us who are
for it.
just listening and not watching, Jen has palm trees and a very beautiful pool behind her that will make us all convinced. So for those of you who are just listening, that is what she is referring to. She just steps 10 feet into her pool and then back into her house.
We love it. And our cost of living for it also, our rent is about $1,200 a month. And that includes a large home with a pool in a lovely neighborhood with lovely neighbors. We're very, very, very happy here.
Nice. And so tell us about, I'm so glad you've landed in a spot that resonates with you, first of all. I'm excited for you to tell us how Expatsi was born.
Sure. So I'm entrepreneurial by nature. I've started businesses before, definitely less successful ones. I was really involved in Birmingham in local food. I had a little grocery store that sold products from local farmers. I loved it. I loved doing it. It was my heart. And, I just starved the whole time. I lived on whatever produce was going bad or things that were expiring. And it was just very, very hard. I couldn't make any money. I opened a butcher shop that also did only locally sourced meats and continued to starve. And finally got back to, my background is marketing and advertising. And so I got back into my regular job. And before I started Expatsi, I was head of marketing at a software firm. And it was fine, whatever. But I missed being an entrepreneur. I really, really do love it. I love helping people. I enjoy seeing problems and coming up with solutions. And I also probably over believe that when I'm interested in something that other people are interested in it too. And so
Us entrepreneurs.
Of course.
It's
and
usually
so,
right though.
I mean, sometimes we're early adopters and you can be too early for sure. Or people are interested, but it doesn't matter because you can't make any money at it, like trying to sell produce. But so we had spent so much time doing it and it was just very challenging. We just really did not know where to go, how to go. We looked at, what if we get PhDs and then we'll draw straws and whoever loses has to get a PhD and we'll go that way. And what if, we just really didn't think we could get jobs abroad. Our jobs were remote, but they weren't going to let us move abroad. And mine was it just wasn't going well. I really did not like it. And so after we came to Mérida, I just turned to my husband and I said, hear me out. What if we take all this info? What if we turn it into a quiz? Because I've been working in digital since the 90s. And a lot of times I would segment users using quizzes, honestly. And so then you can deliver personalized content, whatever. I said, what if we take all this research we've done and we made a quiz? And what if we called it Expatsi? And there's kind of a joke in there because, a patsy is a sucker. And so an expatsy is someone who is no longer a sucker. And so, and I thought, it's cute. The domain was available. And what if we built it and just see if other people would be interested? Now, when we first built the first version, it was very much an affinity test. I didn't sort you based on where you could actually go. I just asked questions about what you were interested in. So everybody got Switzerland because if you said, oh, you know what, I'm willing to speak Italian, German, French, and English. Well, Switzerland got 4 points right out of the gate because so many people speak all those languages and things like that. So over time, of course, we refined it and we made sure to match it with the kind of visas that you felt like you had access to and your budget, most importantly, right? Because certainly not everyone can afford Switzerland. Yep. And put it out there just for our friends to take. And then on June 1st, 2022, I decided to run, $10 worth of Google ads to the quiz to see what happened. And 6 days later, Roe versus Wade was overturned. And the quiz just took off. And that's when I said, this could be a job. It had been our little weekend fun project. So I went ahead and put in my notice. I put in like a 4 months notice to finish out some work I was working on. And in September, started working on Expatsi full time. Absolutely had no idea how to monetize it. But I thought at that point, I think 8,000 or 9,000 people had taken the quiz. And so as a lifelong marketer, I knew that was promising.
That means something.
I knew that there was something. Yeah, I knew there was something there. And honestly, one of the biggest turning points came from a fortuitous connection. We had seen a site called Where Can I Live? And it was run by a couple out of Spain. And we thought it was so cool. And it turned out we had a mutual friend. And the mutual friend out of the blue said, I want you to meet my friends. They have the site called Where Can I Live? And I think you would like it. And they helped us start to build a plan for how to monetize it. So our very first thing was we would recommend their services and they would pay a referral fee. And that was basically the first business that we ever got. Then over time, we had sponsors and we started doing different kinds of consultations and research on behalf of other people. And then it grew from there. In 2023, we brought on our first sort of big sponsor. And when we did, I said, oh my gosh, we need more traffic if we're going to keep this sponsor. So we started going live on TikTok every night because, of course, I had been a big TikTok got me through the pandemic completely. And so we went live every single night in May 2023 on TikTok for hours. And we would just answer questions about moving abroad. But we ourselves had not moved abroad yet. We called ourselves armchair expats.
Oh my gosh.
And so
that's amazing.
I know, in Birmingham, Alabama, and we would talk about it and answer questions. And from that, we started to make friends, right? Because people would come back every night and we started to have sort of regulars. And we wanted to interact with them because TikTok is really just a broadcast medium. It's hard to interact. So we started a Facebook group. And I think the first post in the Facebook group was, when are you taking us on group trips? I was like, if that's what the people want. And so I asked, their first choices were Portugal and Spain. And so we did our first scouting trips in March of 2024. We came back from our first trip that was almost a month. And then in 3 weeks, we sold everything we had and moved to Mexico.
Wow. So it was born before you moved. That's amazing.
Yeah, well before. I mean, and I think that's part of the appeal.
Yeah.
Is that, and the same was true of my grocery store. I wasn't a farmer. I'm never going to be perfect, Instagram perfection, whatever. I'm just a slightly ahead of you friend who has done a little of the work for you. And yeah, it's so much relatable.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, I think you're underselling it because it is scary. The abyss of information and misinformation is wide. And so I think you're underselling what you're offering.
You're so sweet. Thank you. But I do think, there are people out there and you see them and they have these perfect put together plans and stuff like that. And we were like, warts and all, watch us as we do this. Now, I was scared right before we moved. What are we, if we're doing the wrong thing and we're selling our house, and what if we're crazy? But I said, if I believe in this business, then we just have to go for it. We have to do this thing.
So your
And I
community almost
truly,
came with you.
oh, absolutely. I mean, literally, because we went live on the journey. We drove, to Mérida. It took 8 days, and we went live as much as we could with a Mexican cell signal. But I had faith that good things would happen if we could actually get it done ourselves, and it would be easier to help people out than it is to push from behind. And that's been true.
Yeah. And so today, Expatsi arranges for these trips. So as we spoke about earlier, I moved sight unseen. I'd never been to the Netherlands. I'd been to Europe twice on short trips for work even. And so I had spoken to a friend who had lived in London, and she said, have you tried Amsterdam? And I was like, it's on our list. It's one of two on our list. And she said, I would do it. I've been there a lot with my kids, and that was enough. But that's a huge risk. And we were able to take it because our kids were small.
That's so bold.
Yeah, it's so bold. And I did not see that, but I did have those thoughts as we're pulling out of our house. Like I had just finished remodeling our house and we rented it like a month later. And so it was bold, but it just seemed like our path. Does that make sense? Like we had made a plan, we'd made a commitment, and you were doing it in public. So that's another huge bonus for you. But the amount of work, if I would have known the amount of work and the amount of uncertainty, I wouldn't have taken the step. So we went very in blind with the amount of work, we've been really careful through the years of how we approach it emotionally and everything, but I'm so glad that there's someone like you who can help soften it. And that's what we're trying to do with House of Peregrine as well, right? Like mindfully doing these things. There's those of us who have done it this way, and then there's those of us who are trying to help people have a softer landing. And so with Expatsi now, if someone is like expat curious, which is that how we call it? So expat is a very interesting word, and I've really spent a lot of time with this word. It means expatriation. And so how do you explain that to your clients, first of all? And then I want to go into what you guys are up to.
Well, speaking of this word, I will tell you, I didn't know how controversial it was when I named my company. I really didn't know. And there is, some people have the feeling that the term expat is reserved for people who are white or wealthy, and the term immigrant or migrant is reserved for people who are brown or not wealthy. And I just don't see it personally that way at all. I do think that the term expat denotes privilege. And I don't feel comfortable. In no other universe are we encouraged to pretend to not be privileged, except in this one space. To me, I use the term immigrant and expat interchangeably, except of course my name, which is the name of the company. But even when I use immigrant hashtag, right? And I can see what the other hashtags are, and they're points of pride. They're points of pride that people have for having immigrant parents and things like that, if you look through all the hashtags. And in a lot of ways, even when I use it, I feel like Rachel Dolezal, that I'm stealing valor because I'm pretending to be this person who has overcome challenges, which I really admire. Well, I'm not going to say that I haven't overcome challenges to do this, but I certainly haven't overcome the same challenges that a woman has when she has walked across a continent with her children in tow. And I think that acknowledging your privilege is important. And I know that what it is that people are having uncomfortable feelings that they're working through, and they want to put those feelings on me. I get it a lot in social media comments.
I can imagine. Yeah.
And I just let them get it out. Personally, the way I look at it is expat, regardless of race, regardless of the country you're moving to, it denotes being able to do this in this privileged way. I get to choose. I looked at 194 countries and I said, okay, which countries can I go to? um, at my leisure, under no duress, and live here in this amazing, privileged way. And I just don't have a problem with it. The other thing from a practical standpoint is go look at what Google search insights are when someone searches for immigrant versus when someone searches for expat. And when they're searching for immigrant services, it's not what I do. And I would just show up in places that would be in the way of people actually reaching out to immigration agencies that they really need. So anyway, and I don't even know if that's what you meant to ask. Sometimes people use sometimes people use literal terminology like expat is when you're going for work, or expat is when you're going but you're not becoming a citizen, or whatever else. And regardless of that kind of stuff, I do know people have strong feelings about the word, and I respect them and their feelings.
Yeah, of course. But I think I've had a tussle with this word myself. Like, I don't identify as any of those words. So that's why we use peregrine, right? That's how House of Peregrine was born, because peregrines are birds that exist on every continent of the world, but the word means outsider. And so that you're never going to be Mexican. I'm never going to be Dutch, but we are here and we're contributing, and we're here by choice. And so that's what the peregrine does, the peregrine falcon. It goes where suits them best. They can live in any environment on the planet except for Antarctica, where it's too cold, and they can thrive there. And so that is why.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
I've often said, like,
if
a new word, I'm totally down with a new word if someone wants to come up with something new, but for right now.
Yeah, but I love what you say about privilege and not, there's just a lot wrapped up in the word. And, I love how you brought up being excommunicated is another. It's cutting yourself off, right? And so I think it's a scary word. Everyone always asks me, are you going to give up your American citizenship? And I'm like, no, I just live here. And so, and it works for me and my family, and that's really important. So if someone feels this way, though, if they're coming to the right place, because you are in fact helping people make that move, like you're enabling people to go somewhere long term. And so what does the process look like if they come to Expatsi? You have designed something very specific, and I want to hear if I'm sitting, and you do say you help mostly Americans right now. So if someone's thinking, this has been my goal, or I don't feel comfortable in the country right now the way it is, I want to move somewhere else, it's always been my dream, they come to you, to Expatsi, and what do they experience?
So most people show up and take the quiz. That's the first thing, without a doubt. And it asks you exactly all the questions, like I said, that Brett and I asked ourselves that day in the cabin. And then at the end, it recommends 10 countries. And now, Mickelle, you would probably take the first one and just go because you're so brave. But the idea is that it is a thought experiment in a way. And especially if you're going with other people, you take it, your partner takes it, and you compare notes, and you start to have some language around, this is what's important to me.
Define your values.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it also gives you an idea of what's possible. A huge number of people come to us and say, I want to move to the UK. I want to move to Canada. I want to move to Australia. Like the hardest places on earth to get to, unless you have a job that's going to transfer you, or you're in some incredibly high demand.
Immigration is not easy if you're not perfect.
No.
Perfect health, perfect record, perfect job, young. Like, it's a lot harder. Yeah.
And all the right skills.
Yeah. And that's a fact of every country in the world almost, that people maybe come to you and say, I've seen this place. I know this place. It's the US and other countries that are very stringent about who they'll accept.
They are. There are easier places and harder places. So they come to us, they take the quiz, and then we have options. So we have our Facebook group, and the nice thing about the Facebook group, and listen, I police it like an absolute warden, because I will not have people fight on it. I will not have people come and they're freaked out. They're absolutely freaked out right now, right? And they want to make predictions about all the things that are going to happen I'm not having it, because we're never going to agree on predictions. We can barely agree on what is actually literally happening, but we'll never agree on what's going to happen next week. So we work really hard to have it be a safe, loving, tolerant place, even if that means that I kick people out when they're troublesome. So they can come there and they can ask anything. And the group will brainstorm together. Some people have already made the move and they're happy to share tips. Our personal expats or experts from around the world are there, so they'll give tips. And so they can join there. In general, I think there's a 6-stage process to moving abroad. And my goal is to provide guidance and services in all 6 stages. The first is ideation, which is just that light bulb that goes off that says, oh, I could live somewhere else, maybe. And that's where the quiz comes in, right? It's just, could I do this? Is it possible? Exactly. The next stage is planning. And that is, how am I going to do this? The main paths are, you go to school, you get a local job, you work remote, you retire, or you invest. Those are, if you're not, also there's citizenship by ancestry if you have certain ancestors from certain countries. But those are the most prominent paths. So we do have people who come in and they say, I can't do any of these paths right now. And so we talk to them about getting to a place where they can do one of those paths. When Brett and I started, like I said, in 2016, we couldn't have gone any of those paths either. So we had to say, okay, Brett, he went back to school and he studied to be a software developer so that he had skills that he could use and so on. So we talk about that. And sometimes people come in and they can go lots of ways. They have enough money that maybe they could retire early, especially in another country where it's not so expensive. They own their own business, so they could go on a self-employment visa. They could do a golden visa and invest. They have a lot of different options. A lot of times they're in that stage, they use the Facebook group or they book like time with me, and we work through every one of their options and weigh the pros and cons and give them a path. In stage 3, we call that exploration. And that is, I have narrowed it down to Denmark and the Netherlands, and I'm going to visit Copenhagen and Amsterdam and see which I like better. And so that's really where...
This is the vibes trip, right?
Exactly. And that's where scouting trips come into play. It's so funny. We're doing our first scouting trips to Mexico this month. And I have not seen most of Mexico because we came straight here. Mexico's huge. So I'm taking one of our scouting trips as a guest. I'm going to Oaxaca in a couple of weeks. I'm so excited to see, and the thing is, if I end up finding a place that we like better than Mérida, we can move. This reminds me, I want to tell you my putting your purse down philosophy, but let me tell you this. So after you get through exploration, you've chosen your place and now it's paperwork. So sometimes you can do that paperwork from within the country. Sometimes you have to do it from within the United States. It depends on where you're going, what kind of visa type you're getting. It's the most boring step. Exploration is the most fun step, right? Because it's just trips. But
it gets your appetite so you can see what all the work is for.
Oh, absolutely. Exactly.
Yep.
And then paperwork, just boring and expensive. Depending on whether you do it yourself or you hire someone. The next stage is logistics, and that's getting you and your stuff and your pets and your kids to wherever you want to be. It can be as easy or as difficult as you want to make it, depending on what you want to take with you. And then finally settling in, and that's finding community. You talked about, we have a guide, Annabette, who helps people find educational programs in the Netherlands. So we have people who can help with really specific needs in these countries. And it's languages and it's resilience. We have a resilience coach. People don't realize how important it is to be resilient to do this and be able to pivot. There was, CNN features someone every week that's an American who's moved abroad. And this past week, it was this girl who moved to Spain. And I mean, she could not be more miserable. She's mad because they eat too much seafood. She's mad because they take siesta, and she's moving back to Florida. She's all angry. And if I came to Mexico and I expected everything to be like the US, yeah, I'd be really mad too. It's not. Listen, there are things that are like the US. I have Costco. I go to Pilates, but there are plenty of things that are not, in small and subtle ways. They don't eat green onions here. So they sell the green onions, but they cut the tops off because who would want those? So it's like trying to find the one store that doesn't bother to cut the tops off the green onions. If I wanted to get really frustrated with that, or I can say, okay, what's another food I could eat instead? And being resilient is important.
There's predictable steps when you move to a new country. There's predictable, like I would say the stage she's going through is like the grief. There's the acceptance,
sure.
There's anger. I would say there's probably 4 stages of settling in. The first, they say, and I think that research backs this up. It's like the honeymoon phase, then reality hits.
I'm in the honeymoon phase still.
Yeah. Then there's the acceptance phase, and then there's the you sit down with your partner or whoever you've come with or yourself and say, am I going to stick this out? Is this for real? And every year we do that. Every year we say, is this for real? Do we stay? Is this working for all 5 of us? And it's a step that most people don't do in their daily lives. No one sits down at their kitchen table over New Year's usually, like you did and like we do, and says, okay, is this place working for us? This is an ingredient in our lives. This place is an ingredient in our lives. Is it working for us? And if it is, we'll stay. And if it's not, we'll try our best to choose another path. And so I think that those phases are super important for people to realize as part of settling in. And maybe this woman on CNN, like, it was time for her to go back. She had her adventure, and she might learn that she appreciates where she was from more and needed it more than she realized. And so I think every person who goes abroad, even when they travel, but especially when you live, you learn more about yourself almost than you ever would otherwise.
Yeah. That's a big part. You mentioned moving towards something instead of running away from something. And I do think that the more you are, listen, the cost benefit analysis of staying in the United States has changed, period. There are more negative things and fewer positive things. And there may be more positive things abroad. But you do have to be honest with yourself about your needs. This woman, there was another woman. Listen, all the rest of them, they love where they moved, but there was another one in like December or November, and it was a lady who had moved to France, and she didn't like it. And she didn't like it because the restaurant didn't make martinis, and she thought the celery was wilted at the market.
It's just like marriage. It's just like marriage. Like, it's never about the dishes. It's never about the martini. It's never about whatever
celery.
It is about. It's really about something else.
That is so smart. That's so smart. Maybe, like in both cases, they moved. Anyway, they moved from San Francisco to Nîmes. Nîmes is really small and provincial. Like, it's not, if you're going to move from San Francisco, move to Paris. And so on. You have to
sign
find
up for something completely different, right? Like, it's really important.
Right. And be honest with yourself about your tolerance for it.
And we say
what
be
you can
intentional,
handle.
right? Just be intentional about what you want your experience to be, as if it's an ingredient in your life.
I love that. That's so smart. Okay, well, can I tell you my putting your purse down?
Absolutely.
Strategy?
I've been waiting for this. Tell me.
Okay. So listen, do you know how when you go to work event, conference, convention, wedding, concert, any kind of event, you get there, new venue, you've got your purse and coat. And you go in and there's like lights and music and strangers and friends. And there's a buffet and a bar, and you're hungry and you're thirsty. And so you go over and you get that, that little plastic cup of wine. And then you go over to get food. You're starving, but you only have like half a hand left. So you get like one mini quiche and you're perching it on the wine. And so you're trying to get around and remember this person's name, and you go to eat the quiche and you spill your wine and you get spinach in your teeth and you just have this terrible time. But if you can go first and find a table and put your purse down, then go and get your drink and bring it back. Go and get a plate, whatever food you want, everything you need, and bring it back. And go and find your friend and sit down. And you can sit and enjoy your drink and eat your food and get the lay of the land and figure out if your ex is there or your boss or your neighbor that you don't like. And then in 30 minutes, hit the dance floor or get wedding cake or go see a speaker. And you have this great time. I think moving abroad can be very similar. When we got to Mérida, like I said, we were going to spend years visiting all these different places and choosing our favorite. And that's when, when I said, why wait? Let's go there and put our purse down. And I still can visit Oaxaca in Spain and Portugal. We have a million places on our list that we want to visit and consider. But I can do it at this place where I'm relaxed and I'm happy. And my cost of living is so much less. And as a small startup, that's a big deal. My cost of living in Mexico is about $3,000 a month to live very, very, very well. So, for example, that means if I have $30,000 for my business, then I can spend 10 months making it successful. Whereas in the US, if my cost of living is $10,000 a month, I only have 3 months to make it successful. And there's a lot more work that you can do in 10 months than in 3 months. I said we can keep visiting places for as long as we like. I think that's really important, and especially for folks in the US who they're in fight or flight mode, honestly. Their heart rates are high, their blood pressure is high. They feel threatened from all these different sources, especially if they're in any marginalized groups. And so they're trying to make these huge, long-range decisions about their lives under this extreme pressure. So I think there are places, I call them kind of quick hatch options, where you can go and continue to explore and continue the planning phase, but do it from these less stressful locations.
Yeah, it's like a nervous system reset.
Completely go where your vagus nerve says. So in Mexico, you can stay 6 months as a tourist. Same in Canada, the UK, or Costa Rica. And of course, listen, there are tons of people in the world we know who do border runs, which is to say you stay 6 months, you leave for a day, you come back and potentially get another 6 months. And that's not a long-term strategy. But the point is that go somewhere where you can relax. Do your job remote through a VPN if you have to, or whatever. Or, take a leap, use some savings, but at a much lower cost of living, not Canada or the UK, but definitely in Mexico.
Don't go to European capitals.
No, for sure. You can also go to Albania. Americans can live there for a year with no visa at all. And then you only need to leave 3 months, which is exactly how long you can stay in the Schengen zone. So you can tour Europe and go back and do another year. And so if you can get somewhere where you can relax and also get this completely new perspective, what you are going to decide that you need is going to be so different than what you're going to decide when you were doom scrolling news all day long. And you don't know, I talk to a lot of people who work in the government. They don't know day to day if they're going to have a job. But if you can get out, your solutions are going to be so different. It took me a month after we got here to decompress. And one day I was finally in the pool and I was just like, wow, the sky is so blue. It is so beautiful here. And I genuinely relaxed. It finally washed over me. And being relaxed led me to say, oh, here's everything I want to do in my business over the next year. Because I was in a place where I could think. You just can't think when you're under that much pressure.
Yeah. And when you're running away for your either physical or figurative safety, it's not,
Of course.
it's a survival instead of a thriving mentality. So I
Completely.
like this idea that you get out of survival first before making final decisions or spending large amounts of money or time integrating.
Yes, exactly. When you choose that door, when you are going to get visas and make relocations, full relocations, that's not a door that you want to keep walking through over and over again unless money is no object. That is where it costs and so on. And so if you can take your time to make that decision, it's helpful. Now, that said, these decisions, like you said, you sit down every year and say, is this working for our family? And the same thing is true. You are never required to stay in a place that isn't meeting your needs. So you can always move. And I do think that over the next, 10 years, we may just all need to be a little more fluid and mobile than we have known how to be in the past.
Yeah. Especially, I think I'm aware that we're two Americans speaking about this, so we have a very similar perspective, perhaps. But mostly I feel a little sad if people are
Of
feeling
course.
this way. I haven't lived there for almost 9 years. And so the stress you're talking about is so present when I'm there. And I forget about it sometimes. And so I hope that people will take your advice, and that is to reset your nervous system, deal with the grief that is there when maybe,
Yes.
because actually around the world, governments are changing, in the Netherlands as well, in Europe as well. The world maybe isn't what we're brought up with the stories. We were brought up with different stories than maybe we're experiencing right now. And so I think it's really, really, really smart and maybe healing to spend some time just resetting your nervous system and realizing that you're going through something, and the whole world has gone through something with the pandemic, with the way the world is perhaps shifting in ways that we didn't expect. It's really important and wise to do that, because it is another, maybe welcome, but it is a trauma to change countries and move. Even if you're moving across the street, it's a big deal. But if you're changing countries and trying to integrate or learn a language, there's always an upside, and that's why you're doing it, but there's also unseen things. And so I think it's really, really wise to do it this way, and it's much more gentle. And that's especially if you have children with you, or you are in a group that is feeling unsafe right now. It's really wise, really wise. So if I come on if I am thinking of moving and I want to come on a scouting trip with you, I want to go over that really quickly. What do you help people look at? And all that fun stuff, because I want to be mindful of your time. I could talk about this for a lot longer, and I think you
I
probably
know,
could
me
too.
too. Me too. It's so fun.
So I want to just give people an idea of the scouting trip, because again, really, really smart, really, really very wise. So tell me what you're helping people to judge or experience while they're on your scouting trips, besides fun. I'm sure they're a lot of fun.
They are fun. Thank you so much. So the main goal we have with the scouting trip is at the end of the trip, this place is for me or it isn't. If you're on the Portugal trip, that I like Lisbon better than Porto. I like Setúbal better than Cascais. I know what I am looking for. And now I have met someone to help me with my visa, my taxes, my real estate, and my health care. And that's the goal. So, as well as potentially some friends who also want to move there, and then we'll cheer each other on as we go. So, we start off with a seminar. And so the seminar has experts who help you move there. They give a presentation and then they eat and drink with you. And the idea is that you can bring your full list of questions. Everyone has, all these things they're nervous about. Should I sell my house before or after I go? What do I do about my adult child who's also a dependent? And you can ask these questions in this open environment over food and drink where everyone is relaxed and casual, and start to build relationships with these professionals that you'll need as you move. Then day to day, we tour different neighborhoods of places where people really live. My rule is no churches, no landmarks, no museums. We don't do city centers. We don't do touristy areas. We see places where people genuinely have their lives. We go to the market, we go to the pharmacy, we do walking tours around neighborhoods, we see how public transportation works. I used to make everybody take public transportation, and then it became the whole trip was just finding the guests. So we gave up on that eventually, but you can take it on your own, of course. And the idea is that you see all these different ways of life. We also do real estate tours in every neighborhood. The realtors know that you're not there to buy or rent, right there on the spot, but they're showing you, like House Hunters International, this is how a family lives in Gaia. And so you see a place, and if you want to stay and actually get a lease together or buy a property, you can. We just recommend people come a couple days early or stay a couple days late and meet with the realtor. In Portugal, for example, you need a year-long lease before you apply for your visa. In the US, so it is helpful. But that's how the trip works. Sometimes people do multiple trips back to back. So they might compare different parts of Spain, or they might compare Spain and Portugal. Our goal for next year is to expand them dramatically with maybe some professional partners in tours, so that we can explore more places and control just our parts of it. The seminar piece of it, the cities that we're going to, the lifestyle factors, and they can handle the bus and the rooms and the this and the that, because they're better at it. We recommend that people stay in Airbnbs, although if we work with a professional partner, we may not be able to do that anymore. But you can always come and stay longer and stay in an apartment like a local.
Yeah, nice. And so you help people really visualize their life. This is not a vacation necessarily.
It is not.
Yeah. And what I really like about that, if you're doing it with other people, at least this is what I experienced, that it's really hard to talk to anyone around you because they don't want you to leave, which is a really good thing because they love you. But it's really helpful to have other people to talk to that are in a similar mindset. So you can bounce ideas off of them without this emotional charge, right? And so I think that's really, it's smart because then, and like you said, you're already starting to build your community. When I arrived, there was Amsterdam Mamas.
Exactly.
And so I felt like I had a support group right when I landed. And that was really important, actually. That and Google Maps. I don't know how people did this before that, but
I say that all the time. It's not Google Translate is great, but it's Google Maps that makes the biggest difference in being able to do it, because you can see all the businesses, see reviews just like you can in the US, and you don't have to rely on strangers. That's right. Even here, where the streets are all crazy.
Yeah, there's a time and a place to trust strangers, but having that be all the time is really a big deal. So yeah, cool. So people can get started on your website, expatsi.com, and we'll link that below.
That's right.
With the quiz if they're country shopping, which I don't really like to commoditize countries, but to make light of it in a very serious way, it's really nice. So I always say you're not country shopping like you're shoe shopping, you're country shopping like you're house shopping.
Yes, you're looking for fit, right? You're looking for fit, and it's a starting point.
Yeah. And then they can move right on through with you those 6 steps. Will you say them one more time? Just short, the 6 steps you said, or 5 steps to moving.
Ideation, planning, exploration, paperwork, logistics, and then settling in.
Okay. I love that. So they'll help you through those you'll help people through those phases, which I think is really, really helpful. And so people can find you there on your Facebook group of the same name.
Expatsi fam, because we're a fam.
Okay. And then we'll link to your quiz and all that fun stuff. Is there anything else you want to tell us before we close out?
One last thing, our conference. So we're really excited about it. It's going to be in San Antonio, Texas, Memorial Day weekend. Sometimes people want to know why we're doing it in Texas, and I will tell you it is because that is where the greatest need is. We talk to the most people in Texas and California, but people in Texas have the most immediate need to move because things are changing there the most rapidly. We're very excited. We're going to have experts from all over the world, and there are going to be people who can literally get your move started right there at the conference.
Wow. So if maybe you can't make it to Spain just yet, but you can maybe take a trip to Texas.
That's right. And our Spain experts will be there, and they'll give a talk that will be similar to what you would experience on the trip.
Amazing. All right. We'll also link the details to that below. Well, thank you so much, Jen. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you. It's a weird time. We're recording this in February 2025. And so it's a turbulent time in the world in general, but it's fun to talk to a fellow American living abroad. So thank you so much for coming on. And we will link to everything in the show notes. And again, thank you for joining me today on the House of Peregrine podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Okay, that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed our show. For the latest insights on living internationally, join us at houseofperegrine.com to find out how you can connect with our community. Let's craft our life story with intention together.